News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Welcome. You're listening to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt. And before we get going with the show today, I'm going to offer a truism instead of a quote. The truism is this: we cannot have an honest conversation about entitlements without first discussing education, and we cannot hope to save America without first saving our big cities. That said, my guest today is Dave Agemuth. Dave is the Michigan Republican National Committeeman to the RNC and a former Michigan State representative. Dave, welcome to the Renegade River Show.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Dave, I got a lot on our plate today just to kind of run through, but I got to tell you, trying to do some background on you, you've just got one heck of a life career, Dave. I don't want to make you blush or nothing, but holy mackerel, the more I looked, the more I found. Fighter pilot to state representative, and one of the things I was a little bit confused about is what is Top Gun Republican Political Action Committee?
Oh, that's just a committee I put together. Because of some of the past abuse of people that ran in this position before me, this is an unpaid position, and all your travel expenses are not paid. At one point, some of them were. So I put that together so that I can basically use that PAC for expenses. They estimate somewhere between $120,000 over the next 4 years for travel all around the state and 3 or 4 different meetings we have a year. That's what I'm going to have to raise. So it's used for that. I also use it to try to get other fiscal, moral, and constitutional conservatives elected, both in the federal government and the state government. So that's what that's all about.
Very nice. Tell me this. I think a lot of people are maybe don't have a clue what a national committee man is, and certainly I think there's an idea within the grassroots that the national committee man is getting paid really well.
Yeah, doesn't pay a dime. Matter of fact, you get all the hassle and no pay, so it's not a very good deal if you're looking for something to make a livelihood. But, I ran for the position because for that very reason, I wanted to get more fiscal, moral, and constitutional conservatives elected, and I felt like the Republican Party has been constantly being pulled to the left just an inch at a time, and I thought it was time that we planted our feet, stand on our principles, and move that back to the right. So that's kind of what I ran. And basically what the Republican National Committee does is we meet 3 times a year. We just met in Los Angeles, as you're probably well aware, a week ago. And we try to set policy for the Republican Party. So we have rule changes and we do resolutions, one of which I got passed, which is a lot of controversy in that, but it shouldn't be within our party. And we also just try to set the tone for where we should go, and we work with the grassroots. That's the most important thing. I travel around Michigan, talking to a lot of Tea Party groups, Lincoln Day dinners, and so forth. And I explained to them how we lost and how we can win an election and what we need to do to win and some of the mistakes we've made. And basically I want to encourage them that our principles and our platform is solid. And if we stand on those principles, we'll win elections. But we just have to do a better job at telling the truth than the opposition does at telling a lie. If we can just do that and get our message out, we'll win.
I agree with that, but last week, just to kind of recourse, last week I had John Yob on as my guest, and over the course of that conversation, we were talking about what he identified as the 4 different elements or the 4 different legs of the Republican Party, and I bring that up today because I'm watching you get attacked from a few directions for taking some political stands, and I'm trying to get my head around the idea of who all actually makes up the Republican Party. And frankly, that's why I'd asked John Yob, and it's why I'm bringing it up now. I think in the past I had looked at the Republican Party as being like a 3-legged chair. You had the Christian right, you had the Libertarian Republicans, and then you had the establishment, which tended to be moderate, pro-government kind of people. But how do you see it, Dave?
Well, I see there's a greater and greater movement within the conservative group that is really our base, that when I speak, they say, you know what, I don't feel like I've left the Republican Party. I feel like the Republican Party has left me. And I think that's kind of stirred up the Tea Party groups, the I-Caucus groups, and people like that. And that's becoming a larger and larger number. So my attitude to those people is when I speak to them, and quite frankly, they supported me very heavily in the position that I won against Salanusas, is because my attitude is, hey, look, if you don't like the people that represent you, if they're not voting the way you want them to vote, get involved, put your money, your mouth, and your feet to work and get different people elected. Now, that's what it's all about. But to split off and cause another party to exist, that just means the Democrats will win for the next 20 or 30 years. And quite frankly, I don't think we can take that in this nation without completely transforming this nation. And it's absolutely true. Obama had a different view for this nation, and that view is totally, in my opinion, very socialistic, and it's costing us trillions of dollars in the future, which our kids will have to pay for. So in my opinion, he's ruining us militarily, fiscally. He's ruining us constitutionally with all the czars, and I think we have to take that back. We cannot handle this. It's just too much, too soon, and I don't think he took economics in school, because everything he's done with his plans has really hurt this nation in the long run or even the short run. Just imagine had we taken all that money on the stimulus program and stuck that into slant drilling and things like that under the Great Lakes. I know a lot of people say that's not good, but Canada's got over 600 wells slant drilled into the Great Lakes, selling it to us and using it themselves. And then fracking that can be done, and even nuclear power. If we'd have stuck all that money into that, we'd have had gas probably $2 a gallon, and we wouldn't be feeding nations that hate us. We're making them wealthy, and they basically come and try to destroy us as a nation.
No question. The Canadian example with fracking that you offered is another fascinating example of government, in the sense that we've actually helped fund a lot of their drilling, while we're not allowing ourselves to do it, and then we're buying their finished products. So you think, wait a minute, what are we thinking? One of the things that concerns me, though, is as we go forward, you talked about winning and losing elections. When I look at the Republican Party, there is a fracture in it, and I came away from the last convention cajoling myself that it was starting to heal. But the Libertarian Republican effort sometimes, and by the way, I tend to be a little bit of a Liberty Republican. I think you're aware I once chaired the Republican Liberty Caucus of Michigan. That was before the Ron Paul group and all of that. And I was not a Ron Paul supporter, but not to get into that. But what concerns me as we go forward is that things like the coming U.S. Senate race, if we don't heal up or mend or somehow find a way to get on the same page, at least in general, then we're not going to be able to take that chair back. And this is probably one of the only election cycles, given that it's a non-presidential year, where we've got a really good, fair chance at actually winning that chair.
Yeah, I think that's one reason when I went to Los Angeles to the RNC convention that I put in the resolution I did. I wanted to show a very clear distinction between the right and the left, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And I wanted people to see it. We lost about 90% of the black vote, the evangelical blacks, to Obama, about 75% of the Hispanic vote. And overall, I thought people don't understand there is a huge difference in our platforms. So I'm going to be sending out my newsletter here probably tomorrow, and it lists our whole platform. It's rather lengthy, but I'd really like people to read that. And if you could do that also, go to my webpage at www.daveagema.com. And this whole controversy I went through with marriage and so forth has a search engine on there, and you can just click on that, and it'll show numerous articles on from the CDC, from Oxford Epidemiology, and so forth about the harmful effects of the lifestyle. So if I can, the core values that we passed, and by the way, yes, they were voted on by voice vote, but there were no nay votes, so it was 100% unanimous for the resolutions that made it through the committee. So the way the process works is you stand before the committee of, I don't know how many people's on there, maybe 12, 13 people on the committee of the resolution committee, and you bring forth your resolution, you explain why, and then when you're done, if they pass it, which they did mine unanimously, then it goes before the whole body, and all 168 members vote for it or against it. So it made it through the committee process with a unanimous vote, and it made it through the whole member body with a unanimous vote. And basically what it did is, and this is why I did it, I wanted the differentiation. The first resolution was we were reaffirming our rights come from God and are protected by the government, and the only just government is the one that truly governs with the consent of the governed. Why did I put that in there? The Democrats in their platform tried to remove God from their platform. So there's a good example for evangelicals. We have one party that believes wants God on the platform, and another one that tried to take it out. The second one was, and this is all in the same resolution, that we were self-evident truth enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, that we assert the sanctity of human life and affirm that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. So, difference here. Republican Party does not support abortion. The Republican Party does, or Democrat Party does support abortion and even infanticide. If that child is born alive, they'll either let the child die or kill it. We don't think that's right. So that affirms a difference. The third thing in my resolution is we uphold the right of individuals to keep and bear arms, a right annotated this Constitution and soundly confirmed by the Second Amendment. Huge issue here. There's no question. I'm a military officer, fighter pilot, an airline pilot. A lot of our captains with American Airlines carried pistols after 9/11. That's a huge thing because independents, Republicans, and Democrats alike all want to maintain their right to bear arms. And quite frankly, the Obama administration is doing its very best to register. And if you study history at all, you'll find that they register, then they confiscate. Once they confiscate, you've been had by your own government. It's good that our government has a slight fear of the populace that's armed. And quite frankly, in the Constitution, it says in there you have a right to use those weapons against your own government if they become oppressive. So in my opinion, the moment they come to try to take your guns, they become oppressive. So that is a huge issue that we can use for the Republican Party. And the next one, which caused all the fervor, is that we believe that marriage, the union of one man and one woman, must be upheld as a national standard, a goal to stand for, encourage, and promote through laws governing marriage. So, and that one, again, a big difference. We believe as the RNC that it should be between a man and a woman. The Democratic Party does not believe that. They think homosexual marriages are okay. So, to me, this goes against God's laws, nature's laws, and man's laws over the whole history of our country, quite frankly, for generations. So, in my opinion, if the sanctity of marriage is abridged, the society itself fails. And if you study history, you'll find that every society in decay went the same route. And I think we're right at that peak and starting to decay, if you will, because we're losing our moral principles. And quite frankly, the marriage itself, to me, is the basic form of government within a society because you got a mother and a father, hopefully, and they teach their kids. Of course, now you have the Democratic Party trying to say it takes a village, and now you even have some of their senators or reps, I can't remember which one it was, said, well, you know, they're really not your kids, they're our kids. I have a real problem with that one. That sounds just reeks of the socialist plan in other countries that, quite frankly, I was trained to fight against. And, of course, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, what I find amazing when we're talking about distinction, Dave, is that when we walked away from the last presidential race, I said coming into it as we were going through the primary process that if we were to nominate Romney, there would be no distinction because he had, previous to 2007, Mr. Romney had said everything that Obama was saying. And I just can't imagine that someone would have went through a political metamorphosis that grand once he decided he was going to become a presidential candidate. And so, unfortunately, I was right. But what concerns me now, and it goes to the point you're making, is that there are a fair number of Republicans who are saying we have to moderate ourselves. We have to tamp down the Tea Party group. We have to tamp down the Libertarian group. We have to tamp down to the point where we're vanilla and nobody can tell us apart.
Absolutely. And see, that's the problem. When you do that, you'll lose your base. Now, the last election, if you look at overall votes, Romney lost by only a total of 3 million votes. Now, if you do that, I told Reince Priebus when I was there in Los Angeles, I said, if you don't hold firm on the marriage issue, you're going to lose another 3 or 4 million of our base. So, in my opinion, you will become Republican light if we start giving in our principles. And there was a Colonel West, used to be a congressman. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yep, I am.
An African-American. He spoke at one of our events that night. And he said, you know, when it comes to style, yeah, we can go with the flow down the stream. But when it comes to principles, we plant our feet like a rock. And that's what we need to do, plant our feet. And we haven't done a very good job of that. So if you look at even the people that attacked me on this issue within the party, they got signatures. But if you look at most of the signatures, they were mostly what they call political activists in college. Well, come on. I mean, who are they? Are they really Republicans? Are they Democrats? What do they want to do? Where do they want to move us to? We have the right platform. We have the right ideas. But again, I think if you move further to the left, we just move and lose more of our base. That is another reason I put this resolution in. there's one more resolution, part of the big overall resolution I put in as well. And this has been a big issue for me, and that's concerning immigration. As you probably know, I was a pilot during 9/11. I lost friends during 9/11. I was one of the first airplanes to take off after 9/11 out of Chicago. Prior to 9/11, I remember hauling people from San Diego to Chicago. My flight would be overbooked 40 or 50. Some days I'd go out with 40 or 50 seats open, even though I was overbooked. Other days, just 10 minutes prior to departure, I'd have a whole bunch of people piling on my airplane. And the reason was INS was checking or INS was not checking. What they were is illegals getting themselves to Chicago and then scattering out wherever they want to go. So the last thing I put in this one big resolution was the greatest asset of the American economy is the American worker. And just as immigrant labor helped build our country in the past, today's legal immigrants are making vital contributions in every aspect of our life. And their industry and commitment to American values strengthens our economy, enriches our culture, and enables us to better understand and more effectively compete in the rest of the world. But the second part of that says, our platform further states that illegal immigration undermines those benefits and affects the U.S. workers. In an age of terrorism, drug cartel, human trafficking, criminal gangs, the presence of millions of unidentified persons in this country poses great risk to the safety and sovereignty of the United States. And our highest priority, therefore, is to secure the rule of law at our borders and ports of entry. So that's been a big issue for me for a very long time, and I've been pushing in the past as a state representative for E-Verify for all our state employees. Anybody that does work for the state, I wanted them to be E-Verified. And those who are out there don't understand this bill. What that did is Homeland Security has a free system, and it's called E-Verification. You just dial in, for example, if you're going to hire Dave Agema, you get my name, and you get my Social Security number, which you have to get. You plug that in the computer, and you hit enter, and you get a little number from Homeland Security. It zips over to Washington, checks about 450 million documents, comes back and says, that name and that Social Security number match. Second thing it checks, how about the green cards, and how about the worker visa? Are they overextended? And if any of those don't match, you get a non-confirmation. And the cool thing about this, there's never been an American citizen ever lost a job due to E-Verify. Only we've caught the ones that shouldn't be here. And the ones that we do catch that are U.S. citizens, they call an error is not an error because the opposition will say it's full of errors. It's not. It's when somebody gets married and they forget to change their name with their Social Security number because they have a different last name. So it works very well. Macomb County and Oakland County, I helped get that passed when I was a state representative. And Jim Runstead, who's a commissioner over there, told me that as soon as they passed that in Oakland County, they ended up firing 200 people that were working for the Oakland County that were illegals. And those are jobs now Michigan citizens have. Now imagine, multiply that times all the counties in the state of Michigan, we could probably reduce our unemployment rate by 1.5%.
No
that
question
would be
about
really
it.
great.
Dave, I've got to ask you to pause with us for a minute. We need to take a break, but I've got a lot on my plate, so listeners, we'll be back shortly.
On street.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.
If you forget to back up your computer files this week, you're not alone. With so many different things to do, it's easy to forget to back up. And when your computer crashes or your hard drive dies, what will you do? That's why I have Carbonite. Easily back up your computer files at work and at home without thinking about it. Carbonite backs up your computer files in the cloud for you, automatically and continually, away from danger, away from your next computer disaster. You'll never forget to back up again. Plus, with Carbonite, you can access your important documents and files on any computer or on your smartphone or iPad tablet with a free Carbonite app. It's easy to get started, takes just a few minutes. So when your computer crashes or your hard drive fails, and it will, you'll be confident knowing all your important documents and files are available with Carbonite. Get unlimited backup for your PC or Mac, just $59 a year. Start your free trial today. No credit card required. Use offer code KIM at Carbonite.com and get 2 free months with purchase. Carbonite.com, offer code KIM.
Hi, everyone. Jay Farner here with Quicken Loans. Today's mortgage rates are just about the lowest that we've ever experienced. But because these super low rates fluctuate, Quicken Loans has a great new way for you to find out what the current mortgage rate is for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage right this instant. Just pick up your mobile phone and text the word RATES to AMAZE. Text RATES to 26293 to see the latest mortgage rate on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Again, simply text RATES to AMAZE. That's RATES to 26293. At Quicken Loans, we always provide you with the latest technology designed to give you an amazing mortgage experience. Maybe that's why for 3 years in a row now, J.D. Power & Associates has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, text RATES to AMAZE 26293 and discover for yourself why Quicken Loans is engineered to amaze.
Standard text messaging rates apply. For J.D. Power and Associates award information, visit jdpower.com. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
May I have your attention, please? If you are trying to lose weight, we need your help. We're AF Plus, and we have too much product and too few participants in our nationwide risk-free trial. If you need to lose 30 pounds or more and would like to participate, call now. 1-800-497-4929. AF Plus is an amazing, proven breakthrough in weight loss. A once-daily capsule that can help you lose weight in days. It's also one of the healthiest ways to lose weight because each capsule contains natural ingredients, including green tea extract. You'll boost your metabolic heart rate, allowing you to shed pounds in days with just one capsule a day. Be among the first to call for your risk-free trial. Again, we have too many risk-free trials and too few participants. If you would like to lose 30 pounds or more by taking just one all-natural capsule a day, call now to participate in this nationwide risk-free trial. 1-800-497-4929. That number again is 1-800-497-4929.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Welcome. You're listening to the Renegade River Show. My name is Mike Hewitt, and today we're on with Dave Ageman, Michigan's Republican National Committee man to the RNC. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave, we've still got a lot on our plate. I want to kind of segue, if I can, towards firearms. You'd mentioned that in the first segment, sure. and of course that's been with all the things going on. And one of the things that Oscar here in the station was talking about during the break is how will this Boston situation with the terrorist attack play into the argument pro or against guns? How does it all going to fit together? What do you think, Dave?
Well, obviously, whenever anything like this happens, the liberal progressives will come out in droves and say, oh, we got to have more regulation. Well, I contend when they shut that town down, just imagine if most of those houses would have had weapons in them, they'd felt much more secure rather than having none. So I think that if you look at most of the incidents that have occurred throughout the United States with guns, all the regulations they're trying to put out now would never stop them because they don't go through a check. They get it from somewhere else. They get it illegally. So to me, when you disarm the populace, you have multiplied the problem. And quite frankly, when I was a military officer, everything I was fighting against was either communist or socialist made. And what they always did was first registered guns and then took guns. And I think if you look historically, there's been 46 million people killed by their own government once that government took their guns away because they had no way of defending themselves. So I'm a hardcore never give up your guns. And quite frankly, as a result of Obama saying he wanted to try to take assault-type rifles, that brings up a whole other issue. What is an assault-type rifle? Is that what somebody's going to call it? You could probably say my old 30-06 I bought in the 70s that has a 5-round clip that's a semi-automatic is an assault-type rifle. It's the definition of what does that mean. But the whole thing is they shouldn't be even dealing with that. People should have the right to buy whatever weapon they want to a certain extent. I mean, you're not going to buy, machine guns. You can do that now, but you have to have a license to do it. You already have a background check. So to me, folks, you got to maintain your right to bear arms. It's going to maintain our freedom. If we lose that right, we will lose this country and our freedoms. No question about it. One of the things I find fascinating, and it's often quoted or pointed to by the left, is Justice Scalia. I'm reading a headline from the FoxNews.com. Scalia opens door for gun control legislation extending the slow burning debate.
And what he essentially said is that what he suggested is that the firearms that can't be legislated against were those firearms that would have been in keeping by our founding fathers. So it implies that maybe we can have a musket, maybe some. When you read it, it's almost nonsensical.
Well, it is nonsensical. Think of this. At the time, was that the most modern weapon? Yep, it was. So I think it would imply that you could own AR-15 or whatever you want to own today. I think that's a ridiculous statement. And again, it's a progressive judge, and that's another thing, folks. You got to watch who the president is important for a number of reasons, but he sets the tone and he selects these Supreme Court judges. You got to watch who we put in. They're in there for life, and they can make or break this country. And quite frankly, some of those judges think the Constitution says what they say it says. No, the Constitution, if it makes good sense in the literal sense, don't make it nonsense by adding your own sense. And I see a lot of those judges simply dictating what the Constitution, what they want the Constitution to say. And to that particular judge, I would say that's absolute hogwash. If that was happening today and we were going through a revolution, then we would all be having AR-15s and whatever else we wanted. I think that's just a ridiculous argument.
It is. But what the progressives like about it is that Scalia is typically referred to or thought of as, if not the most conservative, certainly one of the conservative justices on the bench. I think it's always assumed that whatever the issue is, he'll be on the side of conservatives. And so when he was the one that offered such language, and it was just they love it. They're still trumpeting it, and it's been quite some time now. But to one of the points you made along the path of what is an assault rifle, we've talked about that quite a bit on this show, and specifically to the point that the comparison you were offering. We had a gunsmith on a couple months ago and asked him, what's the difference between your typical AR that I can purchase domestically versus Grandpa's Woodmaster varmint rifle versus something that this gunsmith had happened to have carried when he served in Iraq. And of course, the conversations, it's almost comical. The differences are so stark. It makes us want to tie it back to the lady out west that said, if once you've run out of ammunition in the magazine, it's done. And it shows how little bit they know about what they're. And it's sad that they know so little, and yet they're willing to offer such stark opinions and legislate on it.
Oh, no question. And I'm going to tell you, I've been in the legislature, and I'm sure it's the same way in Congress, federal Congress. You know, they knock on a lot of doors, they get money behind them, they get elected. But quite frankly, they're voting on a lot of issues they know very little about. I don't know how to say that any differently, but, you vote on hundreds of bills, and you can't read through them all. They don't read through them all. And on this particular issue, the people that I've spent most of my life with were military people. They bristle at this whole thought. I mean, maybe there might be a few, but the vast majority think, man, do not try to touch my guns. To a military person, you don't mess with their beer, their cigarettes, and their guns. I mean, that's just three things you don't mess with. So,
talking about legislature, what's your thinking nowadays about the idea of a part-time state legislature?
I have put that resolution in, I think, every term I was in. 46 states have a part-time legislature. We're one of 4 that do not. And my opinion is, when they are there full-time, they are going to make law full-time. I would much rather see people like yourself and others that have a business, who understand how excessive and onerous laws and taxes, what kind of effect that has on your business, are there instead. Then they have to go back and live with the decisions they made. I'm very much opposed to, full-time politicians. That was my saying, and I'm sure you've all heard it before. Politics comes from 2 words, poly meaning many, and ticks being a blood-sucking insect. If they're there, they're going to figure out ways how to squeeze more money out of you. I mean, look at Obama's plan right now. There's 21 or 23 new taxes in Obamacare that have nothing to do with health care. It's just more and more. And if you look at historically, again, at the nations that fell, they had large government projects, large taxation, immorality crept in, and then they fell. So that's what I'm seeing here. In America, the same exact thing happens, and it usually occurs within about 200, 250 years for a republic or a democracy, and that's where we're at.
Well, you can tell me if I'm all wet here, Dave, but from the outside looking in, it seems or feels like there's a culture in Lansing and in Washington that suggests that you're not a successful legislator unless you're shepherding a bill you've sponsored through the law. And to me, we've gotten to the point now where we can't fill libraries or we overfill libraries with laws that we've written. It seems like the logic should be the opposite.
It should.
Especially from a government that was set up with our founding fathers that thought that our Congress would be out of session 6 months a year.
Exactly. Limited government is the key. And I'm going to tell you right now, the way it works in Lansing, for example, I think almost every bill that I came up with was what I came up with. But what usually happens in areas that are closer to, a 52-48 Republican, Democrat, or it's close, many of those people never thought of one bill. They were given the bill to run so they could say they ran a bill. Now, that to me is an issue. And quite frankly, I used to keep a log book, and I can't say it on the air, but I'll just say dumb bills. I just kept the log book. And I think I voted against last term 150 times against my own caucus, and I was caucus chair because a lot of those bills were unnecessary. And if I looked at a bill, and I tried to use that KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, I looked at a bill and said, is this good for business or bad for business? If it was good for business, I voted for it. If it was bad, I didn't, because I knew that businesses create jobs, government doesn't. But if a government does create a job, it's a tax leech on society. You got to remember, I got an economics background and an MBA in business. So, and the next thing I looked at, does this bill increase taxes, fines, or fees? Because there's a million ways government can try to do that without you voting for it, or I voting for it. And I can definitely tell you, being on appropriations for 6 years, there's not a budget I can't get my hands on that I can't cut some fat out of that. And when people say we're cut to the bone, I disagree. So if I saw it raise the tax, a fine, or fee, if I could find it, I would generally vote against the bill. That consequently, though, that keep it simple, stupid philosophy I had just warranted me being the most conservative legislator in the state. And it's because what is the definition of a conservative? It's somebody who knows what to conserve. And I'm trying to conserve your rights. I'm trying to conserve your paychecks. And I don't want to see the government take any more of that than they're already taking.
What seems fascinating to me isn't that most of the Democrats embrace government, but that, frankly, that so many of the Republicans think that government is what can provide, and in fact is the only mechanism that can provide some of the solutions. For instance, when I opened the show today with a quip that says we cannot hope to save America without first saving our big cities, and what I find fascinating is that, in my personal view, it's big government that's destroyed inner city America. And yet there are still so many people that think the only resolution, the only mechanism that can save big city America is that which destroyed it, big government.
Yeah. If you look back at our forefathers, like my grandparents that came here, my great-grandparents on one side, they came here with a couple of things. They just wanted freedom, and they came with a work ethic. They really worked their fanny off to make a success of what they did. And, for example, my dad never made, I don't believe, more than $18,000 or $19,000 a year. And my mother used to be a cook, a maid in Grand Rapids here. But, she lived to be 93, and something she said always stuck with me. She says, I like rich men. And I said, why is that, Mom? She said, well, rich men build factories, buy boats, cars, and houses, and put people like us to work. So someday I can send you to college so you can be a rich man. That should be our goal. The Democrats are just excellent at trying to spread scarcity. And we should be experts at trying to spread wealth, to encourage people to take a chance, to be entrepreneurs. That's what a Republican stands for. There's a total difference. One is socialistic, one is more, for profit. And the whole attitude that a company that makes a profit is bad is just false, because what do companies do when they make a profit? They either expand to get bigger, or they start new businesses and create more jobs. That's the whole key in the difference.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that concept of profit? Is two things, let me point out if I might. The first is people like Barbara Streisand, who really, really openly push and promote socialism, they're never in a big hurry to equalize their wealth with the popular. No. And you go, wait a minute, Michael Moore, get out of the limo, get rid of the jet plane, and split your money with all the folks that are supporting you. That would be true socialism, and while I wouldn't embrace it, I would at least clap for them being honest about their position. But what just it's mind-boggling that people in general don't want to brace opportunity.
Exactly.
And which is really what we're talking about, opportunity. I don't.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and that brings up another point. What should be the role of government? In my opinion, the government should be there just enough and have a level playing field so you can do as much or as little as you want to and then reap the rewards or lack thereof with a basic safety net, but not a hammock. We become a hammock. And quite frankly, that's how Obama's trying to win the elections, even on amnesty. He knows if he gives amnesty, he's going to get 10 to 20 million more votes. And he knows if he gives something to somebody, they're going to tend to want to vote Democratic. But what people don't understand is basic economics. When the government spends $1, they're borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar, roughly, what they spend. Now imagine you go into the grocery store, and every time you buy groceries, gasoline, you have to borrow 40% to do it. What's going to happen in a very short time? You're going to go bankrupt. That's what I fear in our society here very shortly. Another major dump in the stock market, somewhere around 2014 to 2015, because all these bills are coming due. You got Obama printing $1 trillion a year just in extra money to pay debt. And if the interest rates go up, that's bad because it caused the federal government to have to spend more of its own money. But we owe so much to so many, there's going to come a reckoning, folks. So you, as an individual, if you had to do that, you'd go bankrupt. The government's going to do the same thing, and we will look like Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, and Ireland if we don't change our ways.
No question about it. What I need to do, Dave, is we're going to head towards a break, but when we come back for the final segment, I'm wanting to talk a little bit about corporate tax. I'm wanting to specifically wrestle with the gay marriage issue that's come up of late. And then lastly, I want to end our show today when we'll talk about the Senate race. So hold with us, folks, because we've got some big issues left on the plate. We'll be right back.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
Protecting your home with a security system has become an absolute must. But you have to be very careful when choosing a security company, because there are more scams and bad deals out there than you can imagine. For instance, I don't believe in the so-called free alarm systems, and I don't believe in signing contracts when it comes to my security. But after talking with the folks at Simply Safe Home Security, I'm convinced that they have found the answer. For just $14.99, trained monitoring professionals will be there when you need them, 24/7, no hidden fees, and no long-term contracts. Instead, you'll have peace of mind and a security system that really works to protect you and your family. Simply Safe is a 100% wireless system, 24-hour protection for you and your family. And you'll save thousands of dollars with Simply Safe. Go to buysimplysafe.com right now. And because you're a Kim Commando listener, you can get this entire system for 10% off. See for yourself now at buysimplysafe.com. That's buysimplysafe.com.
Fox News, I'm Karen McHugh. Part of the investigation into the Boston Marathon bombing will be to find out if the suspect Tsarnaev brothers had any accomplices.
We're examining every possibility here. We've told the people of Boston we feel that they're safe at this point in time, and we continue to say that. There may be other components to this investigation that will lead to charges down the road. Police
Commissioner Ed Davis on Fox News Sunday. As Boston begins to recover from the attack, the mayor says his city is strong.
We're not going to stop having the marathon. We're not going to stop having the July 4th celebration, because we're a city that's stronger than these terrorists want to be.
Tom Menino on ABC's This Week. In the town of West Texas, residents are being allowed to return to their homes or what's left of them following last week's fertilizer plant explosion.
That reentry process is going well and orderly, and very few hiccups.
Mayor Pro Tem Steve Vanek, 14 were killed in the massive blowup and fire. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast. Sunshine and clouds mixed today with a high near 50. Southeast winds 10 to 15. Tonight partly cloudy early on with increasing clouds overnight. A low of 36. Southeast winds 10 to 20. Some clouds in the morning tomorrow. Then back to mostly sunny skies in the afternoon. A high of 61 with southeast winds 10 to 20. Then rain showers are possible on Tuesday with a high of 49. Rain and snow for Wednesday. A high around 45. News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Hi, this is Jim Riley, your host of Eye on Muskegon, every Sunday morning from 8:30 to 10 and on the internet at eyeonmuskegon.com. Politics can be aggravating and to some just plain boring, but our elected politicians are spending your hard-earned tax dollars and sometimes borrowing from your children to pay for it every day, even here in Muskegon. We'll continue our quest to expose the power that local power brokers and politicians have over you and your family this Sunday morning, 8:30 to 10 at Eye on Muskegon on News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the Talk of Muskegon.
On street!
Welcome back. You're listening to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt. We're on today with Dave Agema, Michigan's Republican National Committeeman to the RNC. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave, we've got just a little bit more of the show left, but there are a handful of things I'd be remiss in not digging into, and if we can, let's get the gay marriage thing off of the table. You've been beat up quite a bit in the last few weeks in the media. What's your position on all of that?
Well, I mean, there's an agenda. You got 2%, maybe 3% of the population trying to push an agenda. They got a lot of money. They're very organized. So I would, again, request everybody to go to www.daveagema.com, and you'll see a little box there. If you agree with me, just sign it. You don't have to give anything. And then it's a search. Just hit that little search button, and it'll give you a whole bunch of articles why we shouldn't be teaching this in school, why there's so many diseases that they get, why they die young. It's numerous. So to me, it was a number of things. One, I wanted my kids to understand what that lifestyle brings about, and I wanted to make sure that we protect marriage, which I think is the basis and foundation of a society.
What do you say to the folks that are living in a steady relationship, for lack of better words, 2 men or 2 women, and they're living 20 or 30 years in a steady relationship, they're paying their taxes, they're going to work, and they are offended or taken back by your comments? What do you say?
Well, my comments were not my comments. All I stated was in my Facebook page, here's some interesting facts about the health care of the lifestyle of homosexuals, and I let the doctor explain it. And then he refers to several other studies. So I didn't say anything in particular. I just let the doctors do it. I actually got a letter from a doctor in Detroit saying, thank you very much. And he went into great detail, but he can't speak out for fear of getting fired from the hospital he works for. He said, but you're exactly correct. We're dealing with a whole bunch of issues. I would go back, and I don't want to throw any stones here because, quite frankly, I think God loves the sinner but hates the sin. But again, it's been against God's laws, nature's laws, and man's laws. And quite frankly, if we were all that way, society would die out in one generation. But I think those that say they're in a steady relationship, just go to that webpage and read what doctors have to say about, because most of those have been through many relationships, and their heart's been broken many more times than the average, heterosexual, so they have much more depression and so forth. But those are not my words. Those are words of the doctors. So just go to the webpage, because if I say anything here, they're going to say, well, Dave said this, Dave said that. And I say just go to the webpage and look what the CDC says. Even look what the LGBT, their own news says about what's going on with them, that they should be upfront with their doctor and the relationship they're in because of all the different things and the harmful effects that it's causing them. So it's not just me. It's there. The information is there. Just look it up.
Very, very good. I appreciate you commenting on that, Dave. Some of the pushback has been not a pushback of disagreement, but really harsh, vitriol, nasty.
Yeah.
And as a libertarian Republican, that's me. I got to tell you, folks, I reject that kind of approach. If you disagree, it's okay. The rest of it, to me, is just not necessary. But that's just one man's opinion.
Well, hey, what they do typically is they try to they jam you. It's called jamming,
right?
Where they send out the word throughout the United States, and they send you all kinds of letters, emails, all kinds of phone calls, threatening phone calls. Matter of fact, I got called from AFA and talked to them. They said, here's what they're going to do. I said, yep, they did that. They're going to call you homosexual. I said, yep, they did that. They're going to call you, that you're homophobic and all this. I said, yep, they did that. And quite frankly, they even sent me some T-shirts from Detroit. They were all black and bold print front, said Hail Satan. And then they had another 2 or 3 T-shirts that I can't say on the air what they said. So I've had all that. It's been very disturbing, but I guess I kind of expected it because I got into this once before when it was my bill that we passed that says, that the governor signed, that says we will not pay same-sex unmarried benefits to state employees. So I got the same thing there, and quite frankly, I had to get the police involved once when I had a threatening phone call. So all you out there listening, just let you know, I'm a big believer in the right to bear arms, and I'm armed.
Okay, let me take us towards the Senate race coming up. How do you think the Republican candidate, whoever that may be, will fare in the general? And I know it's impossible to give you a percentage, but do you think we've got an even fight going into this one?
It depends who they choose, I think, and I'm not going to say who I'd prefer to have right now, but it just depends. I mean, you got Rogers who's kind of looking at it. You got Terry Land's kind of looking at it. Justin Amash is kind of looking at it. You got several different people. It just depends who they choose. And some of those individuals are afraid to jump in a Senate race when they know they got a sure thing as a representative, but not such a sure thing as a Democrat or in a Senate seat. So I just think it depends on who they pick. So I would say I'm just going to kind of withhold my judgment here for a while. It can be one. Definitely can be one, but we just have to pick the right individual. I'm just not sure who that one is yet.
Well, you know, I grabbed a couple lines from MLive.com, and it said, in a hypothetical Democrat primary matchup, Democrat National Committee member Debbie Dingell, 30%, and U.S. Rep. Gary Peters at 25%, and then a whopping 45% were, of course, undecided this far out. But fascinatingly enough, on the Republican side, 31% of those polled said they were undecided. U.S. Rep. Mike Rogers was at 21. Ronna Romney surprised me a little bit. I don't know why, but 19%. And then Justin Amash at 18%. Terry Lindland at 11. Do you think, of that general list, do you think any of these, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with naming a name, but do you think any of these people on this list have a fair shot?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. Those that are obviously most prominent have the best shot at it. But I don't think, for example, Rogers, I think he's going to, I just got a gut feeling he's going to stay where he's at. It would be, I would think, one that would be a really good candidate to be there. But others have equal, I can't say, it's just hard to tell. It depends on the message they bring. And quite frankly, I like people elected into those positions that have a voting record. You know what I mean by that? You know how they're going to vote because you know how they voted in the past. So that's why I ran for this position. People knew what I stood for before I got in there because I voted that way. So they knew exactly what they were getting. Like I said, constitutional, moral, and fiscal conservatives. That's who I want in because they're the ones that are going to lead this country in the right direction. But I can't say who I would support right now because the field is going to thin out as it goes down the road.
I was told a long time ago, in fact, I kind of offered it last week on the show also, but I was told that if all things were equal, there was a man and a woman in a political race, that the woman was going to come out 4 or 5% ahead. All things
I've
being
always
equal.
heard 2 or 3%. I haven't heard 5, but generally speaking, you got, I think, 51 or 52% of the voting public are women. So you're going to get a larger vote from women, supposedly, if you have a female. But it depends who the female is as well.
Okay. Well, when we're looking for a candidate that can really distinguish his or herself from the pack by having taken strong positions, that leads me to an obvious question, Dave Agema. Are you going to be a candidate?
Funny you ask. I've had some people ask me to do that, but I just want you to know I'm 64. I got 10 grandkids. By the way, I'm driving in the car as we speak, so if I lose you here, you know I'm going through a dip in the road. But no, I don't think I want to do that. I need to spend time with my wife, who's always stood by my side. And quite frankly, I had 2 jobs most of my life. I was flying with American Airlines 13, 15 days a month. And then I also flew in the Air National Guard or was in the reserves. So I was gone quite often, 15 to 20 days a month. And I need to spend time with the family, and now's the time to do it. So I think I'm going to pass on that. I appreciate the offers and all that. But I just need to spend time with the family, which is important.
Is that an absolute no, or is that a
Nothing's
reluctant
ever
candidate?
Nothing's absolute ever, but generally speaking, I'm not interested right now.
Right. You retired? Didn't you retire from the military as a lieutenant colonel?
Yes.
So there really isn't anything absolute, right, Dave?
Well, you retire. Well, that's a good point. If you retire as an officer in the military, most people don't know if there's a national emergency. They can call me up anytime because you've been a commissioned officer. They can call you up. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I didn't serve, but when I wrote my novel, I stumbled across that fact, and I mean, once you're in, you're always in. Is kind of the way I interpreted that law. So
exactly.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. Well, let me ask you this, Dave. I've got you on the air. Is there anything that you're looking to offer that you'd like to discuss today? Because so far it's been my format.
No, I would just say, people, if you're disgusted with your party, then put people in that are better, and then put your money, like I said, your money, your mouth, and your feet where it counts, and get good people in office. That makes all the difference in the world. And if you could, I would highly support the part-time legislature. That's just a big thing. And another issue for me has been the American Law for American Courts bill. Now, somebody else has taken that up. That's where we had about 72 cases in the United States, 50 or 52, I think, were Sharia law being put in our courts and caused people to lose their constitutional rights. That's a big issue. I think immigration and our law, American Law for American Courts, are things I'd really like to see passed in the United States, and particularly the state of Michigan.
My sister Brenda Brown out in Las Vegas would be trying to get me to talk about communication before we run out of time. It's her position that the Republican Party and most of the candidates of the GOP do a terrible job at reducing these huge, gigantic topics down to how does it affect me? Meaning, she says, your guys are always talking about 17 trillion this and 15 trillion that. What does that mean to me? And so I bring that up as we're getting near the end to say one of the things I would encourage you to do with the RNC is figure out a better way for the RNC to communicate. We're already doing that. By the way, I'm going to go down a hill here. I may lose you. They're looking at technology. They're looking at better communication and messaging and so forth. We're having a meeting in May here in the state, and the RNC has also looked at this. The technology aspect we lost, and quite frankly, the most important people in our whole party are the precinct people, precinct delegates, and those people that go door to door. That's how you win an election. That's how Obama won it. Very, very nice. Dave Ageman, I want to thank you very much for being on the show today. I know we're going to lose you as you're driving along. I just want to thank you before you go. My pleasure. Anytime. Have a good day. Thank you, Dave. You bet. Bye. And from my own self, folks, one of the topics I wanted to talk about before we run out of time is the vitriol again. I think Dave's a great guy. I'm using him as an example right now. I think I agree with Dave on about 95% of the issues. 4 or 5% I adamantly don't agree with. Having said that, I know very few people that I agree with 95% of the time. If we are really hoping to win in the senatorial race and in the various House races that are up for grabs, we are going to absolutely need to get our hands around slowing ourselves down and thinking about it and being a little bit more statesman than throwing cannons and bombs and seeing how acidy we can be in our dialogue. I've been a candidate before, and I understand the feeling of the bunker mentality when you're being shot at, etc. We're not that. We're citizens, and we're trying to end up with a better government. And the only way to do that is for us to find things that are common and stand together to what's that old saying? Divided we fall. It just calling this guy or that guy KKK. That's the progressive left loves it when you folks do that. So I'm asking you, keep your powder dry, listen, and work towards communication. I ended that with Dave because on the topic of communication, because I think it's a huge topic. But it doesn't start with the party at the top. It doesn't start with Lansing or Washington. It starts with us. I genuinely believe that we have to be better communicators based on my belief that our government is a reflection of the electorate. So with all of that, folks, I'm just thinking that as I watch Facebook and the comments that get made, and they don't advance a cause. They don't help people with a differing agenda. They don't help the Republican Party. The only people served are Democrats. So let's stand together and unite, and let's start again next week at exactly Sunday noon. Thank you very much for listening to the Renegade River Show.